We're going to go over lines 25 through 49, actually 26 through 49. I strongly encourage you to pay attention to the Latin, and then after you've listened to the translation, pause it, and then make notes on your own translation that you've written down, or write down something new on your own by looking at the Latin, and then that way that'll help you remember it. So don't just copy exactly what I'm saying without paying attention to the Latin, because that's not going to help you learn it. Okay, so here we're starting with what was making Juno so angry. And so what was making her so angry were some things that had happened in the past. So it remained in her deep mind. So in her deep mind, this is ablative of place where. Now, notice we would not say in her deep mind, we would say deep in her mind. It remained in her deep mind, stored up. So that's repostum. Now, we would actually expect the word repositum but if you look at the word repositum, it has 3 short syllables in a row, and if you have 3 short syllables in a row, then you can't use it in dactylic hexameter. So it remains in her deep mind, stored up the judgment of Paris, and so que, and the insult to her rejected beauty. And actually, I translated that as dative, but you could also translate it as genitive, the injury of her rejected beauty, and either way is okay. And the hated race, the hated people, so, she hated the Trojans, and the honors of snatched up Ganymede. Now, you could translate this 2 ways. You could translate it as the honors of snatched up Ganymede, or you could translate it as the snatched up honors of Ganymede. So Ganymede was this royal Trojan, so another reason why Juno hated the Trojans, and Jupiter snatched him up with by an eagle and made him his cupbearer. And Juno had wanted her daughter to be the cupbearer, so she was kind of mad about that. Okay, now on this next line, we have 2 possible choices here. We can either make super a preposition governing his, or we could make it an adverb. And if it is a preposition that governs his, you'll notice the preposition comes after his, and that's a little unusual word order. And when you have that unusual word order, that's called anastrophe. So anastrophe is when the preposition comes after the words. That's anastrophe. And that would be what's going on right here if we do this as a preposition. So this is Akinsa is modifying Juno, inflamed also by these things. Now I just did that kind of as an adverb. It sounds okay that way. Either way, you can translate it the same way. Inflamed also by these things. Now if you do this as an adverb, that makes this ablative of means. So inflamed also by these things. And then we go all the way down to here. She kept off. She was keeping off, so we kind of have the imperfect there because she was going on, this was a long-term thing going on and on. She was keeping off far from Latium, the Trojans. And these Trojans were the remnants of the Greeks. Now, they're not Greeks. They were the people that were left behind by the Greeks during the Trojan War. So the remnants of the Greeks and cruel Achilles. Because Achilles was a Greek, and so these were the people that were left behind after the Trojan War, the survivors. So she was keeping off far from Latium, the Trojans, a positive, the remnants of the Greeks, and cruel Achilles, having been tossed around on the whole sea. And they were wandering for many years driven by the fates, now this is ablative of means, around all the seas. The Ikore Toto here, that is ablative of place where. And I think that's all the notes I have on these. One last thing here, you might notice the alliteration here in longe latio. So it starts with L and then L, so longe latio. So you've got that alliteration there. Okay, so moving on, and this is a very famous line, and it's indicating, how important was, well, right here, such a task, how important was Aeneas's journey, and this is also showing how important Rome was. And so the line here is, it was of such a burden, such a difficulty, such a task. It was of such a task to found the Roman race. And so if it was so difficult to found the Roman race, then that's showing, how much it's worth. And so as a matter of fact, right here, this is a genitive of quality right there, genitive of quality. Okay, so now we're being thrown in medias res, into the middle of things. So now we're just starting right into the middle of the action. So we had our little introduction, Juno's so mad, she's making all these things, and now we just have this action, we're going to be in the middle of Juno's anger and causing a storm. Okay, so scarcely from the sight of the land of Italy, the men happily, now literally it says the happy men, this is actually an adjective modifying the subject, and we're throwing in the word men there, but it kind of sounds better to translate it as an adverb. So the men happily were setting sail, so this is an idiom for setting sail, we're setting sail into the deep, and the deep is standing for the sea. And they were plowing, so it's a kind of a metaphor, but we can also, translate this instead of, normally means plowing, but you can also kind of, they're sailing, but it's really, they were plowing with bronze. Now this is a metonymy because the bronze is standing for the prows of the ship that were sheathed with bronze. And so that's metonymy. Oops, metonymy. So they were plowing with bronze. The foam of the salt. So the salt here is also metonymy. It's standing for the sea. So they were plowing with bronze, the salt of the sea. And notice the alliteration here, spuma salas. It's supposed to kind of sound like the sea there with all those S's. When Juno, saving, now in your book that'll have a V there instead of a U, saving or preserving the eternal wound, and we'll translate this as deep in her heart rather than under her heart. And then you have to understand the word dixit here, said these things with herself. So se cum is standing for cum se. Said these things with herself. And now we have this sentence that's all infinitives. And these infinitives are in an exclamatory question. So she's asking a question. So rather than using an indicative verb, she's using infinitives. So, and this is the subject, may, because subjects of infinitives are in the accusative case. The nay is making it a question. So am I, having been conquered, to desist from my undertaking, and not be able to turn away the king of the Trojans from Italy? Surely I am forbidden, or I am prohibited, by the fates, and that's ablative of means. Around here, and this is about Minerva, in Greek Athena, and she is also named Pallas. So she was angry because during the Trojan War, this person Ajax. Now, it's not the most famous Ajax, it was a different Ajax. But this Ajax destroyed her temple and also captured and seized Cassandra, who was one of her priestesses. So Athena was, or Minerva, was really mad at this guy. And so Juno is comparing her anger to the anger of Athena. And we're continuing with these infinitives in an exclamatory question. And so she's saying, was not Athena able to burn up the fleet of the Greeks and drown the men themselves in the sea? Now that's ablative of place where, on account of the crime and rage of one person, Ajax, son of Oileus. So this is genitive and it's standing for son of. She herself, now that's referring to Juno, she herself, let's see, she herself having hurled. Now this looks like a perfect passive participle, but it's from a deponent verb, so it has active meaning. So having hurled the swift fire, so rapidum goes with ignum here, the swift fire of Jupiter. So we're referring to his lightning bolts here. So the swift fire of Jupiter from the clouds. And both, so the que here is both and. So, and she both scattered the ships and overturned the seas with winds. And this winds is ablative of means right here. And she snatched up by means of a whirlwind that one man, breathing out flames with his chest pierced. So basically she had shot a lightning bolt into his chest, and so he was breathing out these flames from his chest. So she snatched up by means of a whirlwind this one man, breathing out flames, having been pierced in the chest, and impaled him on a sharp rock. Now this could be dative with a compound verb, because infixit is a compound verb, or it could be ablative of place where. Either way, doesn't really matter, has the same meaning. Okay, so you need to be able to translate all of these lines, and any of the words in your book that are in italics, you need to know those vocabulary words because they show up again and again in the Aeneid, so make sure you know those.